UK's laundry poverty. Welcome to Mark and Pete, with a story that sounds funny until it's not. In fact, sounds funny until it smells funny. Yes, this is Mark and Pete, two blokes with half an opinion. Now, here's our first thought.
Clean as a whistle. A washing machine can keep clothes clean and wring them until they no longer hum. With its spinning routine, high on hygiene, it blows to the beat of the drum.
Yeah.
Well, that might be amusing for most people, but the fact of cost of doing laundry from a university perspective and students is so expensive that choosing between eating and washing your clothes is a serious problem. Yes, University of York students have said that washing and drying clothes in the university owned by the accommodation costs have gone up to around £5.10 per load. That is a lot of money, especially if you're a student. And you've got all these other expenses on your course fees and many other things. Mr. Pete, I know that students can be a little bit messy. And in fact, it's maybe that sometimes prioritizing the student loans and some of the money that they have could be a problem. But maybe not being able to afford to wash your clothes, that raises a big stink.
Yes, indeed it does. Add a nice pun. But the thing is that this is one effect of the dire straits that Britain is in, due to I hate to put the blame on our government, but the policies that have been put in place over the years have meant that we can't afford things. One of the main problems is energy policy,
Yes.
and it just costs too much. Now, most people will use warm or even hot water as part of their cleaning process. Now, I know some detergents don't require it, but that's just generally the case, and and so therefore immediately you're going to have an increasing cost to do that. And if you want to get them dried as well, if you're in rented accommodation, you've got no space to dry things at home, you've got to actually pay for a dryer. So you're not talking £5 a load as a student, you're talking £10 a load, in that you've then got to put it into a tumble dryer. And actually, in lots of places, it's more than that. That's maybe in especially student laundrettes that you were talking about. I don't know, but it can be far more than that. And you don't always just want to do one load. So, it's getting very expensive. You wouldn't be able to afford it because it all comes down, I believe, to energy costs. Because even if you're not talking about the energy of actually used to heat up the water and to run the machine, energy costs put up the price of the detergent as well. So by indirect means. So it is down to a lack of understanding of economy, how an economy works. It needs cheap energy. It doesn't need allegiance to spurious green energy claims, and it certainly doesn't need kowtowing to some sort of international order, an idea of which we in Britain are meant to not use the energy resources we have, like by fracking or taking advantage of the oil in the North Sea. We should do those things. And it's just to give the Christian angle, as we like to occasionally on Mark and Pete, we as a society shouldn't have a government that puts in place policies that grinds people down so they can't live with dignity. And Mr. Mark, looking at you wearing smelly clothes isn't living with
Yes.
dignity.
Well, look, I would just like to point out that my underpants were fresh on 3 months ago,
Yeah,
so I
well,
know what I'm
yes,
talking about.
yes. And then
Now,
you
the
turn
fact
around
of
and
the
go the
matter
other
is,
side, like we all do. Yeah.
you're absolutely right. It's about dignity. Now, I've got a suggestion here. I have to go back that this is not a new thing. I remember when I was a student 300 years ago, and the fact of the matter is, it was true that even then, that it was very expensive washing your clothes. You would probably have to wait for a week to 2 weeks, build it all up, and then go to the laundrette. The thing here is, Mr. Pete, do you think that really we should be investing in our students? Why not offer this free? Universities and colleges have many facilities available. Now, I understand that you might have to charge for certain things, whether it be for the powder or whatever. But paying £5.10 a load, that's a lot of money. And what I'm concerned about is when students decide to either wash their clothes or decide to eat. It should be
Yes.
both.
Mm.
Now, what I think should happen is that these things should just be mandatory. They are there available to students who are qualified, they've worked hard, they've gained their qualifications, or they're about to get their qualifications. They're trying to improve their education in a university degree or a college
Yeah.
course or somewhere like that. To me, especially things like, washing your clothes, those facilities should just be readily available free. Now, I know it has to be maintained. Maybe you could work on a ticketing system, so it's not abused. So basically, instead of putting a coin in, you have put in a voucher. And I know that that used to be done in some universities where you were given a
Yeah.
quota of tickets or coins. And that way, that means that you can manage it. So that's the first thing that I say. The second thing is, whatever it is, I would say to the students, never compromise on either. I know that when you're looking at your budgeting, you have to prioritize on your coursework, your materials, etc. I know that these things are really tight, but this is tough as a student. You want to still be
Yes.
entertained. You want to go to the cinema. You may want to buy sort of luxury items. Prioritize on these type of things. We can't change the government's policy today, although we wish we could. And if Mark and Pete was running the country, believe me, we would definitely be prioritizing on you. But the
It's
fact is
it's
that
coming.
I think that it's coming. But the fact of the matter is that they definitely should not be thinking about either eat or heat or wash. Because to me, really, this just sets up a generation in the wrong way. Do you agree?
Yes, you make good points for a short term fix to it, and it is important that we don't discourage young people from going through with their university or other training courses. Um, Long term, yeah, it requires a bringing down of costs and prices. So there's that twofold approach would be appropriate. But it's not just them, of course. Energy prices and washing clothes costs have gone up for everyone, and an overall policy to bring down energy prices needs to be done urgently. That's what I would say. I say yes, put in short-term fixes that you suggest, which yeah, excellent idea. But just overall and long-term, we've got to stop doing this. We've got to stop being fooled. We've got to stop being useful idiots to people in other countries and to international conglomerates. We've got to stop having green policy, which puts up the cost of fuel, which including not bringing in our own fuel that we have access to from the North Sea, for example, as I mentioned earlier. We've got it's not just the clean clothes, but it's the overall cost of living. But that's where it starts. The lack of integrity, going around with dirty clothes just because of the uh, your government doesn't care about you. Time to change the government and change policy.
Well, I agree. And as many of the students who were interviewed across universities have basically summarized by saying, no one wants to go around stinking. Well, that's true. But the
Yes.
fact of the matter is that some of these things are really basic services that I think should just be there mandatory when you qualify for a course. And so, as far as my message to everyone in government and universities, I think it's time to clean up your act.